Ladies and gentlemen, a very warm welcome to this dialogue. Now, Ethiopia is an important country situated in the volatile, yet strategically important Horn of Africa. And as such, this East African nation has been instrumental in playing a crucial role for the peace and prosperity of the countries in the Horn. So what are some of the challenges that Ethiopia has been facing in this regard, and what are some of the success stories? In order to break it down for us, Dr. Abdi Zenebe is joining me. He is the Deputy Executive Director of the Institute of Foreign Affairs. I'm your host, Shifara Olako. Do stay with us. Dr. Abdi Zenebe, Deputy Executive Director of the Institute of Foreign Affairs, many thanks for making the time to talk to us.
Thank you for having me.
So to kickstart our discussion, let's first talk about the challenges and the opportunities that Ethiopia has as a country situated in the volatile yet an important region, the Horn of Africa. So could you briefly walk me through some of the challenges on the one hand and the opportunities on the other that Ethiopia is facing because it is situated in the Horn of Africa?
It is a very critical and timely question, as you have very rightly indicated. But I think it's also equally important to look into two important matters before we delve into discussing about the geopolitical situation and the challenges and opportunities about Ethiopia. First and foremost, Ethiopia has a dream, geostrategic objectives. These are the touchstones, how we measure the challenges or opportunities. So the most important geostrategic objective of the country currently is ensuring peace, prosperity, and regional integration. Ethiopia has also its own ways. The Ethiopian way, the Ethiopian approach is to achieve peace, domestic as well as at the regional level, and ensuring at the same time regional integration through give and take approaches. The approach that we are following, the way is peaceful means that include pragmatism, give and take approach, interdependency. These are very critical elements. So these are the benchmarks, how we measure different geopolitical developments, whether they are weighted as good or bad, or challenges or opportunities. The other most important thing, I think, in discussing the geopolitical situation of Ethiopia, we need to take into consideration is the international environment, the global environment, as well as the Horn of African geopolitical dynamics is very much important. As you know, the world that we are living in today is very complex. It's full of paradoxes. On one hand, we are experiencing major difficulties. One of the visible things across any part of the world is rivalry. The rivalry with the different emerging geopolitical spaces, either on the land, on resource-related rivalries, on trade rivalry, or maritime route rivalry. We also witness rivalry across the cyberspace. A lot of intense rivalries are there. There is a major challenge on the existing international order. And there are also pressing issues, as you know, the pandemic, climate-related matters, issues of xenophobia. These are some of the challenges that the world is facing. But on the other hand, we are also witnessing, major developments, positive ones. The huge movement of capital and labor from one part of the world to another part of the world, and a higher degree of interconnectedness, among humanity, like never before, is one of also the other things that we observe. So this is a very complex world that we are living in, and the Horn of Africa is no exception in this regard. Yes. So based on this, when we see the Ethiopian geopolitical situation currently, of course, Ethiopia is in a major path in its geopolitical journey. There are, of course, in the sub-region and the global level, there are challenges, but also there are transformative opportunities. And Ethiopia has a potential also to tap from these opportunities. Ethiopia is located in a very strategic location, found in a very strategic location. We have rich cultural heritage. The progress that we are witnessing across the economic line is very critical. And the ideals of the reforms that Ethiopia is undergoing currently is also attracting a number of different actors regionally and beyond. And there is also a huge chance for Ethiopia to emerge as a very important player at a regional and continental level, both in terms of politics, security, and economy as well.
Moving on from there, as you know, Ethiopia is an important contributor to the peace and prosperity of the countries in the Horn of Africa. In this regard, let's also talk about some of the major roles that Ethiopia has played in contributing to the peace and prosperity of the countries in the Horn of Africa. What are some of the major achievements that Ethiopia made, and how should it continue in the future?
The matters of peace and security is a dire concern or concern for the Horn of Africa at large, and issue is connected to a number of different issues: structural issues, historically rooted issues, economic issues, political, and also the penetration of the different actors from outside is also need to be taken into consideration. In such a difficult environment, Ethiopia has been serving the region in a different category. For example, in terms of Ethiopia's foreign policy orientation, priorities, the top priority for Ethiopia currently is the region, the neighborhood. Ethiopia prioritizes for the first time in its security and in its foreign policy orientation, the sub-region. Horn first is the major primary
proximity, right?
Proximity, and this is a major shift, and it comes with the Madamar philosophy espoused by our Prime Minister Abdi Zenebe, and also Ethiopia gives priority also to the continent. The utmost priority given to the Horn, to the continent, and the Middle East. This is a major shift, which means Ethiopia gives precedence to the Horn of Africa region. And in this regard, we have been working very closely to in different areas. For example, in terms of providing troops, as Ethiopia is one of the top troop contributing countries in different problems across the sub-region. And Ethiopia is also one of the promoters of African solutions. As one very important Pan-African ideal, Ethiopia has demonstrated in internal security challenges, and at the same time, it's always prioritized this issue. So it gives the utmost priority to the sub-region, and at the same time, addressing structural issues require a greater degree of collaboration among Horn of African countries. We have a trait that's coming, the expansion of the Sahara Desert is one of the major traits. This demands collaboration beyond borders. And we need also to address economic challenges. This also demands a greater degree of collaboration. So Ethiopia also prioritizes regional integration through sub-regional and continental institutions like IGAD, the Nile Basin Commission, African Union, and other instruments are also very important for us, for Ethiopia, to pursue its peace and integration agenda. And beyond this also, we focus on increasing the interconnectedness with our neighbors. That includes, in terms of infrastructure, telecommunication. As you know, Ethiopia has completed its Grand Renaissance Dam, and this is not to serve only Ethiopia, but the sub-region as well. Energy security is a major serious concern for our neighbors, for the continent at large. So Ethiopia, through these instruments, will focus on addressing economic challenges as well. This will help us in addressing not only current temporal conflicts, but address structural issues that will help us to ensure lasting peace and stability.
That's interesting indeed. Particularly, as of lately, we have been witnessing growing interests in the Horn of Africa from different countries across the whole world, specifically in the Red Sea and also in the Gulf of Aden. In this regard, how should Ethiopia, as a country rightfully and naturally situated in the Horn of Africa, how should this country respond to new developments, and how should it also make the best out of this?
As you know very well, the issue of the Red Sea and the adjacent waters are not only critical, but they are existential concerns for Ethiopia. They are serious matter, and the stability and the peace of these waterways is very much critical. Ethiopia also understands the shift in the international security, political, and pivot. And there we are witnessing at a global level the emergence of powerful economies in the Near East, in Asia Pacific, and also Southeast Asia. Also, the priority for the world is shifting toward this Indian Ocean and the Asia Pacific, which continue to make, in a growing manner, the Horn of Africa as a most important place in the world. It has a choke point, as you know, the Bab el-Mandab, the Suez Canal, and this is going to attract a large number of foreign actors. But this will definitely going to be an opportunity if the Horn of African countries continue in their endeavor towards a greater degree of collaboration and integration and addressing internal and concerns, joint concerns in the arena. But for Ethiopia, have like any given country, prioritize its national interest, and this Ethiopia aspires to ensure secure, uninterrupted, and diversified access to the sea. Serving 130 million and growing population is not an easy matter, and this is well recognized by different international norms and laws and international players as well. So Ethiopia would like to increase its role not only as a land power but as a maritime power, as a rimland country as well. So there are also different collaborations that Ethiopia is working with its neighbors, and in the strategy of deepening our collaboration with Djibouti, with Kenya, with Sudan and Somaliland are very much important elements, because we know we have to play an important role to address the need of our people, the need of the sub-region, but it is also an African water that we have to have a say. We have to collaborate in protecting the African interest with the fellow African brothers and country states.
This East African nation, that is Ethiopia, has a growing population as well as a growing economy, and as such it has been asking for access to sea outlets rightfully and as per the international law. In this regard, how should Ethiopia continue pushing for access to sea outlets as per the international law and standards?
This is a very important issue. One thing very clear, that there is immense recognition in terms of international law, the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea of the 1980s and of the 1960s, also the New York Treaty and others, are all recognize access to the sea for a landlocked country. But Ethiopia have a very close proximity to these waters. Ethiopia's strategic concern is connected not only to the Red Sea, but also the Eastern Mediterranean, the Suez Canal, Red Sea, of course, the choke point, Bab el-Mandab, Gulf of Aden, and the Western Indian Ocean. These are very important waterways for the very existence of the state of Ethiopia. So Ethiopia sees this matter as a strategic issue. And this attempt to suffocate strategically Ethiopia come to an end. Ethiopia is providing important component, like, for example, energy to the nearby countries, and at the same time Ethiopia have a legitimate demand to have an access that is uninterrupted, secure, and diversified outlet to the sea. That is a very important element to address its domestic and also international aspirations. And Ethiopia's way is very clearly stipulated. As you remember also in our Prime Minister's last Parliament session, he clearly indicated the approach. The approach is a peaceful approach through give and take policies, through a mutual beneficial manners. So Ethiopia is putting on the table is critical infrastructures, like the Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, Ethiopian Airlines. Ethiopia have an important place in the space, in the airspace, on the land as well. We have freshwater reservoirs and other things. We are collaborating with our neighbors on all these different areas, and this will not be difficult also to collaborate with our neighbors to have access through peaceful means. So the legitimate grounds are very rich, not only in terms of international law and norms, but the international system also provides us with a lot of examples. For example, Uganda has access through Mombasa. Rwanda has access in the nearby areas to Dar es Salaam and Mombasa as well. Botswana with South Africa, and when you go to Mongolia, the Chinese provide them access in a different part of the world. Bolivia, Peru, all of this have access to with arrangements with their neighbors. And also the Horn of Africa countries are not new on such a matter. Horn of African countries have this experience of lending outlet to distant powers This has been the case across the neighborhood. It has been so. This is not a new thing, not also something out of line, but it is a legitimate concern. But also the one thing that needed to be realized, I think we have to emphasize, is the growth and the development and prosperity of Ethiopia will have definitely a positive impact to the neighborhood at large. So it is not only about Ethiopia we are talking about, because this is the reason, for example, in the African Union Agenda 2063, the development approach is a corridor development approach. We are talking about corridors. Yes. We have the Lamito corridor, we have the Berbera corridor and other corridors. This means development can come through collaboration. We have rich experience from the European Union and other also regional schemes as well. So I think there are legal grounds, international experiences, and also the sub-regions experience, and how states collaborate with different countries is visible, and this should not be a surprise to anyone who has been observing developments about maritime and maritime-related issues.
Thanks so much for breaking that down to us. And finally, as you know, Dr. Abdi, Ethiopia has been going through tremendous change and transformations, especially over the last couple of decades in different areas and in different aspects. While this is the case, we are witnessing some, specifically in the West, that seem to be clinging to the past dark image of the country, as in those past days when Ethiopia had to go through those hunger times some 40 years ago, when Band Aid's single was released. Do They Know It's Christmas? And this 40 years later is being reissued, and many are questioning the relevance of this issuance. What is the motive behind this that you see, and why are they taking such course of action rather than appreciating and focusing on the positive image of the country?
Actually, I see it from an African philosophic vantage point. To deny African the agency and the space has been a very major challenge for the Eurocentric view proponents. And this is also the same, because the thing you have mentioned could have come, seen Ethiopia, consulted with Ethiopia, discussed with Ethiopia, rather than tuning into a very old and anachronistic to the current time. There are different developments and changes, as we have indicated, especially since 2018. The country has been in a major transformation, and this transformation has brought about energy security, as we have discussed, for example. It is a historic achievement, not only for Ethiopia, but also something that can serve the sub-region as well. It is the largest dam. And also we have scored a number of different ranks in different areas, including in agriculture. We have to work, of course. We will not always wait also the colonial narrators to talk about us. We have to rebrand ourselves. We have to consider this space one arena where we battle and we fight and communicate the rebranded image of Ethiopia. But to bring about this image is not welcoming. And it misses the purpose, the intention. The purpose is doubted not only by our local observers, but also international observers as well. What purpose it is going to serve? What is the reason for it? Unless it is about self-serving interest, to serve one's ego and to bring about something already have done in the past, and to bring that thing again is totally missing the point, because Ethiopia is working with different actors. Ethiopia is an important player at the sub-region and continental region as well. We provide troops, we provide different platforms for diplomatic negotiation and other things. We have now a very important, robust, growing agriculture industry. We have never experienced that kind of horror that we have experienced in the past. Not only that, one very important element, if you allow me, is that Ethiopia, with all the difficulties, is leading the best managed transition of our time. Transitions are always very much difficult. Where is Ethiopia today? Ethiopia is leading a transition through a reform manner. And most of the transition that have started are facing huge difficulties. We can see our neighbors, Sudan, South Sudan, or Egypt, it has showed a U-turn. But Ethiopia's transition is being well managed. Transitions have ups and downs, unsettling elements. But this is also a period where we conceive big dreams and big aspirations. And Ethiopians' brothers, Ethiopian supporters, and Ethiopians themselves are focusing on hope and changing and rebranding our country's image. And we have been working very hard, and definitely we'll make sure that this rebranding will be promoted in a capable manner and across every part of the world. And we will continue to fight also such narrow Eurocentric views that targets our nation and people at large.
Well, that's great insights and wonderful analysis, Dr. Abdi Zenebe, Deputy Executive Director of the Institute of Foreign Affairs. Many thanks for your ideas and, of course, for your time.
Thank you very much for having me.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, with that, we come to the end of today's program. And thank you as well for having been with us so far. And till I see you next time with yet another program, it's a goodbye from me, Shifara Alagam.